Feeling depressed or down or anxious or any kind of what we would call negative emotions is so difficult and so hard and so painful, and we really fight to get away from it as quickly as we can, but it's so important to understand that pain and why it is so difficult to sit in and why it becomes so urgent for us to move away from it. And where is that panic coming from, and this came to me via a medicine that they use in the jungle called sananga. It's an eye drop and it stings. It really stings like crazy. You put it in your eyes and it stings. It's not bad for you. It doesn't hurt you in any way. And if you haven't experienced it, I can kind of explain what it teaches you in a different way. If you imagine that I took a cigarette lighter and I took your hand and I put the cigarette lighter under your hand and I lit it, as soon as you feel that burn, you're going to yank your hand away instantly. And we assume, oh, well, you're taking your hand away because it's painful, and we think we understand what that pain is. But let me put it to you this way. If I said to you, I've got a very special cigarette lighter here, and it's got a special flame, this flame will not hurt your hand. It won't damage your hand at all. There'll be no blister, there'll be no scar, there'll be no mark. But it'll feel exactly the same way as a normal one. But there'll be no damage at all to your hand. And in fact, it'll actually heal your hand and prevent osteoporosis later in life. Can you imagine how much longer you'd be able to hold that lighter under your hand? And it's just because there's no fear. And just imagining that, if I said to you, okay, just see how sore it is, and you might be tempted to kind of go back and see, well, maybe I can go a little longer, and there'd be daring teenagers out there all over YouTube doing the 1 minute challenge, 2 minute challenge, 3 minute challenge to see who can handle it for the longest, because there's no fear of the pain, and so the fear of harm, the fear of consequences to the pain is actually so much more significant and difficult to handle than the actual pain itself. So to put that in the context of emotional pain, let's say it's anxiety or depression. Let's say it's depression that you may suffer from. Let's say I said to you, for the next 15 minutes, just for 15 minutes, I'm going to give you that feeling. I'm going to give you the feeling of a bad depression. But it won't be attached to anything. There will be no context. There'll be nothing wrong with your life. There won't be anything to be depressed about. And at the end of the 15 minutes, I'm simply going to turn it off and it'll be gone. There'll be no after effects or anything like that. So I'll turn it on. It won't make any sense. It won't be about anything. It'll just be that feeling. And then I'll turn it off. That wouldn't be so bad. I don't think that would be so bad. The feeling itself is really not that bad, if you think about it. What makes it so terrible is the fear and the thoughts attached to it. It's all about that context, and that context is about fear. Fear of repercussions, fear of what other people will say, fear of what's going to happen to our lives. Are we going to be able to function? Are we going to be able to look after our children? Are we going to lose our partner? Are we ever going to recover? Are we ever going to be okay ever again? What's wrong with me? There must be something fundamentally wrong with me. Why do I always feel this way? That's all fear. It's all fear and it's all context, and it's got very little to do with the feeling that you're actually feeling. The feeling that you're feeling is really not that bad. So it's important that when you feel these things, when you're feeling guilt or remorse or regret or anxiety, just feel it. Just feel that. I say to people sometimes, if you imagine having a cold, when you have a cold, you don't panic about it. There's no fear attached to it. You're not worried that it's going to hurt you in the long term or that it's going to have some major impact in your life. But you don't feel great. You feel pretty awful. But it's okay, and you just look after yourself, and you give yourself more kindness, and you ask others around you to give you a little bit more kindness and a little bit more leeway, and you look after yourself and you support yourself and care for yourself through that process, and there's no fear, and it's really not that bad. It doesn't feel great, but it's not that bad, you know, and that is very much the kind of state of mind that is so much more comfortable when we're feeling down or nervous, you know, or anxious or depressed, or, you know, just look after yourself and just go through the feeling. And you'll find that if there isn't the fear, that constant cycle of thought and analysis attached to it, the depression won't last that long. It'll just be there and then it'll go. But when we replay everything and all the possibilities and all the things that could go wrong, our mind just constantly manufactures new scenarios to keep us in that fear and to further exacerbate that pain. And you've got to just let that stop and just allow the pain to be there, and just look after yourself, care for yourself.